Good afternoon, members. Reconvening full council meeting today, Wednesday, April 19th. We're on the top of page 15. Just want to make a note. Bill 20, 2022 on page 18 has been canceled. Bill 20, 2022 on page 18 has been canceled. Now to the top of page 15 from the Committee on Transportation, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I move that CR 92 be adopted in Bill 20 CD1, that is Bill 20 of 2023 CD1, as amended, past second reading. And this is relating to parking.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam already addressed what the bill is relating to. I do see Director Morton here. Aloha, Director. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to please explain further Bill 20?
Yes, for the record, Roger Morton, Director of DTS. Let me see. Department supports Bill 23, or Bill 20, pardon me. I'm a little confused because of the feedback I get on this thing. Thank you. This is a residential restricted parking bill. We've made, we're very supportive of the bill. We look forward to working with the council's staff. There are some issues that we want to resolve within with staff before we get to the next version of the bill. And I think that our staff is in good communication with other with staff from the committee.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the director? Seeing none, thank you so much. Thank you. Now I'd like to move to registered in-person testifiers, Natalie Iwaso. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Council members. Natalie Iwaso for the record. So this particular issue I have opposed from the very beginning, and the reason is that we all pay for all the public roads, and so why should a particular neighborhood be allowed to reserve spots for themselves? And then I look at homes that have, their garage door open, and I see all kinds of stuff other than cars. And so, of course, they're not going to be able to park in their own garages and need someplace else because they have too much stuff in their garages. The other thing that I don't like about this is that I think this is still true, that the fee that they pay is only 50%. And if they're going to have something reserved for them, they should pay the entire cost of the program. One other thing I noticed about this bill is it's very long. And so, a lot of it was crossed out, but the more regulations we add, the harder it is, the more time it takes to enforce, to administer, that kind of thing, and that drives up costs. I also wanted to mention on page 9 of the bill, there's item C for determining whether a neighborhood should get an RPZ, and it says the extent to which vehicles parking in the area are not registered to residents in the affected area. Now, this is, again, another restriction or criteria, whatever you want to call it, factor that I think is going to be labor intensive, because how do you know that a particular vehicle is registered elsewhere unless you have somebody out there checking those plates? So from an efficiency perspective, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I understand the idea, but it just doesn't make sense when you take that into consideration. And if you're going to go forward with this, maybe there should be an item in there that says anybody who wants this in their neighborhood doesn't have a bunch of junk in their garage and they actually need a place to park on the road. So thank you for allowing my testimony.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Ms. Iwaso? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, are there any other additional remote or in-person testifiers?
Mr. Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Members, we're in discussion.
Chair.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
I want to thank Councilmember Cordero, who's been working on this for years, given that the existing RPZ zones are in Kalihi and parking is very tight, notwithstanding folks having things in their garage. It really is an issue that the city does need to deal with. And this is something that also affects other areas in the community. I do want to note that we are having a town hall meeting on the evening of May 9th for the Kalihi Valley neighborhoods that already have the RPZ or are in the process of applying for RPZ. And we'll be sending more information door to door to those neighborhoods. And if Ms. Wassa wants to come and see how the RPZ is working in Kalihi Valley or anyone else, we'd be happy to let anyone see how they've been going so far, and they have been very successful.
Thank you so much. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference?
Aye.
Councilmember Kiaina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Councilmember Talba?
Aye.
Councilmember Tupola?
Aye.
Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 9 ayes.
Thank you. CR 92 has been adopted, and Bill 20, CD1, has passed second reading. From the Committee on Zoning, Councilmember Say.
Mr. Chair, I move that Committee Report Number 308 of 2022 and Bill 54 of 2022 pass second reading.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam for the second.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Say for the explanation.
Okay, this is relating to bed and breakfast homes and transient vacation rentals, expanding the areas located within the A1 low-density apartment zoning district and the A2 medium-density apartment zoning district situated in close proximity to the Ko'olina Resort where bed and breakfast homes and vacation rentals or units are permitted.
Thank you very much. I do believe we have a number of registered testifiers. We have 5. Let's start with Levi Booker.
Hello, just speaking in support of Bill 54. I'm a homeowner in Ko'olina and greatly appreciate you guys continuing to pay attention to this and hopefully get it resolved. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mr. Booker? Seeing none, next, Stephanie Brooker.
Mr. Chair, the testifier is not logged on.
Thank you. Next, we have Teresa Hardin. Good afternoon. You're on mute. There you go. Please proceed.
Hi, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Teresa Hardin, testifying on behalf of Bill 54. I am definitely in support of corrections, and clearly what was done was not intended to be done this way. There are a handful of situations that actually are similar to this that I believe need to be included with this correction. And I want to talk specifically about the figure 21-5-1, and it's titled Bed and Breakfast Homes and Transient Vacation Rentals Permitted Area, Waikiki Special District, Mauka of Kuhio Avenue. I have submitted in my written testimony 5 additional buildings that should have been included with these, like the Banyan and the Sunset. And they were not, I think, just in error. Over the years, I have been working very diligently with DPP in trying to be proactive in getting things addressed before they became real issues. However, down to these 5 buildings that still has not been successful. One of the buildings I'm talking about is in on the park.
Actually, ma'am, can I ask you to please keep your comments relating to Bill 54? We're talking about Ko'olina.
I am. It's corrections to the map of what buildings that were supposed to be that are to be corrected. So it is specific to the 21-5-1. So as I was saying, DPP has submitted letter in writing, which I gave to you, saying that a specific building was allowed that specific use. And now I know that they are issuing notices of violation. So there's a problem here with the way that things are being executed, and there needs to be a proper forum to address these things properly without the current threats of under Bill 41. So this is something that I urge this council to step back and make these corrections to these maps. Ko'olina is not the only one. There isn't very more of them, but this is urgent that you correct all of the problems here. So please, if you would reconsider the 5 buildings that I had specified. And I also have a question about what it says specifically on here is that the permitted areas, Waikiki Special District. Now, those 2 specific buildings were not actually part of the special district.
Please wrap up your testimony, ma'am.
Yes, so I'm curious about if they are rezoning these to special district or if they're just making a blanket exemption. That is not clear.
Thank you.
Chair.
Members, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am, for coming on today. I just wanted to clarify that because this bill is called Ko'olina, I can't actually add anything else. Many people have approached me about it, but I do know that the director of DPP is or has submitted her suggestions on corrections for the vacation rental unit bill that will help to ease some of these issues. And then that will come in front of us all together with many of the things that you're speaking of. So I do think that that can be handled, but it's at the planning commission level and not up to us yet. So I do hear you, and I look forward to working with you. And I do know the director is aware of some of these corrections that need to be made. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions for Ms. Harden? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, we have Don Borgeson, followed by Chun James.
Aloha, Chair Waters, council members, and your staff, and the administrative staff that are present today. My name is Don Borgeson, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment on Bill 54 on behalf of Friends of Kuilima. As a legal resort location on the north shore of the island, we have also been subjected to changes in zoning and boundaries in as recently as 2019 and 2020 legislative sessions. We strongly support Bill 54 to fix the segment of the bill that was initially passed in Bill 41 that the City and Council had passed and became law in April of 2022. As passed, the boundaries for the legal and illegal resort property in some cases were located within the same property structures. As an example, some homes made legal the bedrooms and bathrooms, and yet the kitchens and dining areas of the same home were considered illegal. The Bill 54 corrects the interpretation of the boundary locations, which the administration had developed and supported within that Bill 41. We gratefully thank the unwavering efforts by Councilmember Tupola and her staff to ensure common sense is applied when legislation is put forth by the administration. Our North Shore group looks forward to helping find reasonable additional solutions with council members to correct other undue, burdensome, and unenforceable laws that were enacted as part of Bill 41. And I do want to say that although we're on the North Shore, the resort property at Ko'olina is one of our sister legal resort properties, and we are in full support of this. And I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Ms. Borgeson? Seeing none, next we have Chun James.
Aloha again. I understand that this is specifically for Ko'olina. I also understand that Kathy Sokugawa, then acting DPP director, make an in-house administrative rule to turn the entire Kuilima into legal vacation rentals, where Dawn is at right now. But in the process of all this upheaval, there is also a group that has been cut out and been pushed aside, and that is that we have also kupunas, owner-occupant owners who have been doing bed and breakfast for a very long time, but because of all these changes and moving boundaries, they are actually not legal anymore. And I feel that we really need to take care of our residents, especially our longtime residents and our kupuna. So my suggestion would be that owner-occupant property owners who are 65 years and up and who have lived in Oahu for 20 years or more should be allowed to do their breakfast inside their own home and not be subject to all this $6.50 rates for bed and breakfast. And then also, I think that we need to realize that keeping a bed and breakfast, opening your door, sacrificing your privacy is a big deal. I don't think that a lot of people would do it, but those who have been doing it and those who depend on that income to help them support in their retirement ought not to be just cut out just because of administrative rules and changes of boundaries. So I think there is an area there that needs to be taken care of so that we keep in mind that our kupuna are taken care of and that we just do not cut them off simply because of the new rules and administrations and boundary changes and this and that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, is there anybody else wishing to testify either in person or remotely?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Tupola.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I oppose illegal vacation rentals, and we should keep it in the legal resort zoned areas per the law. Bill 54 corrects what is currently an arbitrary radius running through Ko'olina hillside community that, in a few instances, divides homes literally in half, making some residences both permitted and unpermitted for short-term rentals at the exact same time. This bill is permitting TVUs in an already zoned area, and DPP supports it, as well as former staff member Katia did say in a public hearing that they were in favor of this so that all contiguous A1, A2 areas in resort zoned are all under the same ruling so that there is no confusion. This is not expanding into any new areas, and this bill is following current laws and the injunction issued by Judge Watson. I appreciate the zoning chair for the support of this as well as the department and ask for my colleagues' support on this so that the community can rest and there is no more confusion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any further discussion? Councilmember Kia Aina.
Chair, I also support this measure. This is an issue that we have already discussed, and I'm appreciative of you calendaring this. While this topic has been included in Bill 10, 2022, the overhaul of the land use ordinance, I believe that even with our most expeditious timeline, it's going to actually take several months. And I just feel that since DPP is strengthening its capacity on the implementation of Bill 41 as well as its enforcement, as a matter of equity, we need to make sure that we included this provision in it so that everyone will know where they stand. So just also urge my colleagues to support this measure independently of Bill 10.
Thank you very much. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Councilmember Talba? Aye. Councilmember Tupola?
Aye.
Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 9 ayes.
Thank you very much. CR 308 from 2022 has been adopted, and Bill 54, 2022 has passed second reading. Now to the top of page 16, Councilmember Say.
Mr. Chair, I move that Committee Report Number 96 and Bill 8, Committee Draft 1, as amended, pass second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Say for the explanation.
Relating to affordable housing, promoting the development of affordable housing in the city and county of Honolulu in the extension of the ordinance that we had passed previously.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have no registered testifiers, one remote testifier standing by.
One remote unregistered testifier. Please proceed.
Aloha. Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of CARES. So we're just going to provide comments. So the purpose of this ordinance is to promote development, and the new chapter called Affordable Rental Housing enacted by Ordinance 19-8 has been codified as Chapter 32 in the revised charter and is scheduled to sunset on Friday, May 19th, 2023. In accordance with Ordinance 19-8, Chapter 32 will be repealed on May 21st, 2024. And upon the repeal of Chapter 32, affordable rental housing projects developed thereunder will be deemed a non-conforming multifamily dwelling use and must comply with the applicable non-conforming provisions of Chapter 21-4.110. So as a concerned citizen and an active advocate, I'm concerned about the layers that are being added on with the legislations from the city and the state that impacts DPP's workflow and backlog, or it may impact DPP's workflow and backlog. And it may affect the way developers build, and it could affect the way the community responds to development. At the recent series of town halls, there were comments about development, and it seemed like the community doesn't get why there are all these regulations. And so, for the purposes of promoting development and to disseminate and to simplify information to the public, it should be considered to run a campaign like that which was implemented by Resolution 22-123. And for the purposes of promoting development, the educational campaign can be can be posted on like the city's social media platforms and websites, or at this or use other various means of communication to reach the public, like that was implemented from Resolution 22-123. That was an educational campaign for qualifying residential property owners to learn about home exemptions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Members, we're in discussion. I do want to note that we do have Director Don Takeuchi Apuna here if any of the members have any questions. We're in discussion. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you, Chair. In support, I just wanted to thank Councilmember Say for introducing this, extending it. And of course, there was some traction on this. We would like to see more. Anything that can help affordable housing is great. The program was awesome, but still difficult. Many of these people are not developers, but we did appreciate the administration's Bill 1 that added a funding mechanism, but I do think we should extend it out, which is what this bill does, so we can get more of these projects done. There are a handful that are still in the pipeline, and we thank DPP for also making it a priority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Aye. Councilmember Talba?
Aye.
Councilmember Tupola?
Aye.
Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 9 ayes.
Thank you, members. CR 96 has been adopted and Bill 8, CD1 has passed second reading. Now to the top of page 17, third reading measures. From the Committee on Executive Matters and Legal Affairs, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I move that Committee Report 85 be adopted and Bill 3, CD1 as amended pass third reading. This relates to public sidewalks, expanding the commercial areas subject to the city's current restrictions on persons sitting or lying on public sidewalks in Kapalama.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam already explained what the bill is relating to. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we had one registered testifier in person. That person has left, and one in-person, remote testifier logged in.
Okay, so the person who is registered to testify, I believe I have here Ji Jing Zhang.
Hey, so I got it a little bit mixed up. The zoo bill, I testified for Bill 3 when it was supposed to be the zoo
We did get a chance to hear from you. Can we simply incorporate your testimony previously testified to this bill?
So testify for Bill 3, not for the zoo.
Correct.
Okay, so I just want to comment about what I was saying before about SET and STAR. So that's two, alternate response programs, and one is medical care and one is law enforcement. So the theories of criminal law deterrence, why laws are created to help violators and homeless people to deter them from crime. There are theories of incapacitation and theories of rehabilitation. Okay. So that's how laws...
Again, we did incorporate your testimony that you previously gave, and I believe all the members did have a chance to hear you. May I just ask members, do you have any further questions for Ji Jing Zhang? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Clerk, are there any other registered or unregistered testifiers on Bill 3 CD1?
Mr. Chair, that concludes the testifiers.
Thank you very much. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Tupola.
Is this for Bill 3?
Bill 3.
Okay, thank you. I'll let Councilmember Dos Santos' time go last, so I'll just say a few comments, but I did want to let him know that his community members were sitting here. Unfortunately, they had to leave, but I do know that they attend almost every single meeting because of their concerns. And I do want to thank the council member for taking me on a tour of Kanoa Street and allowing me to see for myself. I love seeing things up close and personal so that we can get really intimate with the problems that we're trying to solve. I do have reservations on this bill, and I did communicate that to the sponsor. While the overall point-in-time count has decreased since 2010, the number of unsheltered people experiencing homelessness has steadily increased. May I please ask one more time publicly to the administration, where is our clearly defined plan on homelessness? As stated in our Public Safety Committee, the Stored Property Ordinance is a tool and not a solution. I repeat, this is not a solution. And the community in Councilmember Dos Santos' TAM, as well as my district and many other districts, are asking for us to use this tool towards a solution. Where is the clearly defined plan that we need to follow? I believe we need to restore public spaces to the public. The community on Kanoa Street is asking for the area to be safe, accessible, and open to the public, and not for permanent camping or living. There is no sewage, water, bathrooms, or other amenities that would make it a place to live. How do we shift our focus to restoration? How do we cut a budget line item to fund and focus on restoring public space? The only way to change the use of an area is to make it purposeful. There is need for parking, and easily this could change the energy in the space to something useful. I do not think that adding their street to the sit-lie is the solution, but I do believe for the community on Kanoa Street, they need a budget line item that will put in drainage, lighting, convert the easement into usable parking stalls. The easiest way to do this would be to work in small sections of the street, convert it into usable space, start with the Waianae Makai side, and then work on half of the Mauka side. While this process is happening, outreach workers should house those who are willing. Utilize outreach workers that are willing to interact with the community without law enforcement officers. I can go out myself with Lindsay from the State Office of Homelessness to go and help. I do know that there are a few willing, but there needs to be a clear message. People need to say this portion of Kanoa Street will be restored for the public on this date. We'd like to get you into housing and help you prior to that date. Have everyone use the same verbiage, the same message, the same end date, and the same goal. I've walked this street and I do believe that it's doable. I'm here to help. I want the residents to feel safe and hope that they know that despite my vote of reservations, I am results focused and believe a plan would yield the change that they are looking for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, and I want to thank my neighbor, at least my desk neighbor, Councilmember Tupola, for coming out with me to see this for herself. And I want to thank all of my colleagues for hearing this bill over the past few months and providing some relief to the neighbors in Palama and specifically on Kanoa Street, Pool Lane, and the stretch of North King Street. I realize that the sit-lie ban is not a solution to homelessness in general. And frankly, it's often counterproductive to the other things that we need to be doing to address the homelessness issue. And so I understand and appreciate where my colleagues' reservations may be coming from. I don't feel begrudging in any way. And as to Councilmember Tupola's suggestions, having seen it firsthand, we will be putting in some amendments to do exactly that, improve the drainage, improve planning, just help to make this neighborhood that I think has felt forgotten for a long time, make them feel seen and heard. And I think that's really key to giving neighbors the empowerment that they need to take back their community and turn this negative encampment that has attracted a lot of bad elements over the years into something positive that they can be proud of and take back their streets. And so to the neighbors who have been contacting my office over the past several months to do something, this is one step ahead. It's going to be married with other tools within our toolbox to help deal with this. And I also agree that we need to be working with the administration, holding them accountable, pushing them forward to deal with homelessness in general. And that includes, the services that are just a quarter of a mile away in Evelyn. They're right there, making sure that those are accessible, available, and expanded to meet the needs of these often service-resistant homeless folks who've gathered on Kanoa Street. So thank you.
Thank you very much, members. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Aye. Councilmember Talba?
Aye.
Councilmember Tupola?
Reservations.
Councilmember Wire?
Reservations.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 9 ayes.
Thank you. CR 85 has been adopted and Bill 3, CD1 has passed third reading. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I move that Committee Report 86 be adopted and Bill 5 pass third reading. This relates to reporting requirements.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam explained the bill. I believe we have one registered testifier, Jing Jiang. Please proceed.
Aloha. Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES and Strong Support. So the Office of Council Services provides comprehensive research and reference support for the City Council, conducts research for the enactment or consideration of legislation, and serves in an advisory and or consultative capacity to the Council and its committees. The mission of OCS is to provide nonpartisan, in-depth, objective research, consulting, and drafting support to the Council and its committees in support of the legislative activities, and to quickly and accurately make the enacted legislation available to the public in the revised ordinances. Section 3-107.74 of the revised charter authorizes the council to create the Office of Council Services to assist it in the exercise of its legislative power. OCS is a necessary branch of policy formulation or legislative role of the council, and a tool for decision making to assist it in analyzing the city's policies and financial programs for its effectiveness and adequacy.
Thank you.
Yes, it is very, very necessary to support OCS and the new reporting requirements periodically.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, are there any additional in-person or remote testifiers, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Members, we're in discussion. Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference.
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina.
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto.
Aye.
Councilmember Say. Councilmember Talba. Aye. Councilmember Tupola.
Aye.
Councilmember Wire.
Aye.
Chair Waters.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 9 ayes.
Thank you. CRE 6 has been adopted and Bill 5 has passed third reading. Now to the top of page 18, first reading items. Vice Chair Kia Aina.
I move that the first reading items listed on pages 18 to 23 of the agenda pass first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vice Chair Kia Aina for the explanation of all the first reading items, please.
And Mr. Chair, just based on your comments earlier, Bill 20 is off the agenda, so I will move to Bill 22 relating to real property taxation, Bill 23 relating to the building code, Bill 24 relating to real property taxation, Bill 25 relating to real property taxation, Bill 26 relating to real property taxation, Bill 27 relating to real property taxation, Bill 28 relating to naloxone, I don't know how to pronounce this, naloxone. Bill 29 relating to real property taxation, Bill 30 relating to real property taxation, Bill 31 relating to real property taxation, Bill 32 relating to public transit.
Thank you so much. Members, as mentioned, all first reading bills are on page 18 through 23, with the exception of Bill 20 on page 18, which has been canceled. I do note that for the majority of these bills, Director Kawano has been assigned to represent the city with regard to most of these bills, and Dr. Ireland for the Bill 28 relating to naloxone. Members, what I'd like to do with your indulgence, for those who have registered to speak on these, we'll take them up front. And if members have any questions for the department heads, at that point, we'll open it up for questions. And I do want to just remind everybody that this is first reading. These bills will be referred to the Budget Committee as well as being taken up by the Permitted Interaction Group. Now, having said that, may I now call on registered testifiers, first Natalie Wasa, then Ted Kafalas. And if you will, simply testify on all bills when you come up to testify, all bills that you want to testify. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Natalie Wasa for the record. First, starting with Bill 24, and let me start out with, I totally appreciate the introduction of all these different options for us, because it's really important to, I think, get our real property tax system in good order. So with respect to Bill 24, this adds a new classification for long-term leases. So you might recall that earlier I mentioned that I prefer having one residential class. However, if you're going to go down the road to keep a separate classification, I would support a long-term lease classification. This particular bill, it's not clear to me whether somebody who's on a month-to-month lease, even though they started out with a one-year lease, would still qualify. So I prefer the wording in Bill 27 with that respect. And another thing to just kind of keep in mind is that there are people who live here who have short-term leases, students, temporary workers, and so those types of residents are kind of still going to be left out in the open and subject to increased rents by their landlords when their costs go up. Oops, sorry. I had 6 pages of notes today. Okay, next bill, 25 would exclude long-term leases from residential A classification. So this is another option that you're looking at. I'm not sure how this would work, but I do appreciate the introduction, and I think it's really important to recognize that we have a lot of renters out there who have landlords now who are in the residential A classification and have had multiple years of increases, double-digit, in their real property taxes. Next one, Bill 26, would increase the credit, real property tax credit to $500 for resident homeowner occupants who are 65 or older. And, you know, I understand there are quite a lot of kupuna who are on fixed incomes, but just because they're 65 or older doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have the means to pay for their real property taxes. So I ask you to consider that. And a better option, I think, is for those people to apply for the credit. Of course, it's too late now for this coming fiscal year, but you know, this is the time to educate people that they can do that if they have low income. Bill 27, this particular bill adds a long-term rental classification and increases the threshold of Res A to 1.3 million and Tier 2 to 2 million. And so, you know, 1 million is obviously way too low for Res A, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate the wording regarding the month-to-month continuation of the one-year lease, and that's really important because if you were to not have that, it would mean that potentially long-term lessees would have to ask or the tenant, the landlord might have to redo the lease. And anytime you redo a lease, that's an opportunity to increase the rent or look at the terms or that kind of thing. So I appreciate the month-to-month wording in this bill. Bill 29 regarding real property tax increases the threshold, for Res A to 1.5 million, Tier 2 to 1.5 to 5 million, and Tier 3 up to 5 million. You know, one of the main problems with the residential A at 1 million is that it's been stuck at 1 million. And so that's why we have this increase over the years from 7,000 properties or so to now about almost 30,000. So I ask you to take a look at indexing. You know, that's used by the IRS for our taxes and stuff. It's a very, very effective way of trying to manage our taxes. Bill 30 regarding real property taxes for, this is the exemption for credit unions. It would increase the minimum tax from 1,000 to 2,000. And really what we need to be doing with this particular exemption is just repealing it. And I know there was a concern about mortgage rates. But you know, if you really look at the industry, you look at what the banking industry is doing, you look at other financial service providers, credit card companies these days, you know, there's a lot of competition out there. And so just because there's a credit union doesn't mean that they're providing the lowest mortgage interest. And in fact, I know that they are not providing the highest savings interest. So I support the bill, but I ask you actually repeal the exemption itself. And the last one, Bill 31, this one would allow a $300 credit for real property taxes for the next fiscal year for residential properties that are used for long-term leases. And I apologize for my error earlier about stating that Res A would cost about 8.9 million, whatever it was. I forgot that there were a whole bunch of properties under $1 million that are not currently allowed to get the $300 credit. So if this is the way to do it, where you get more of the residential properties, if you don't want to go for the full shebang, then I guess this would be a compromise. So thank you, Chair, for allowing me to testify on all these items.
No, thank you. Members, any questions for Ms. Iwas?
Chair.
Councilmember Tipple.
I just wanted to say thank you for your insight on a lot of this, and thank you for being a voice for renters. You've really become that. And although, you know, we're taking all of this into a resolution for a permitted interaction group, many of us are listening and writing down notes. So thank you for all the work that you did in order to be prepared for today. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Seeing none. Next, we have Ted Kafalas, Grass Institute of Hawaii. Aloha and welcome.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Council members, Ted Kafalas with Grassroot Institute. As I've mentioned previously, we believe that Bill 25 is probably the best method to address property tax classifications. The advantage of this approach is that long-term rental properties would be taxed at the same rate as homeowners. So you remove any kind of disparity between the residential and Res A properties. Ideally, this would also open up properties to the rental market, which would help chip away at some of our housing shortage. So we appreciate your consideration of this bill along with the many others. And just to touch briefly on Bill 27, We do support increasing that Res A threshold from $1 million to a higher valuation to account for inflation and ever-increasing property assessments. And just as a little background, those Res A tiers started back in 2018. At that time, the median home value was around $800,000. So now we've seen that value increase to over $1 million, and it just seems right to increase that amount. Finally, looking at Bill 31, we do appreciate the intent of this measure and support what you guys are trying to do, but we do feel it may be difficult to administer since city officials would have to process thousands of applications in a narrow window of time. It would just be much easier to simply adjust the rates on residential and Res A properties and just make it simpler for everybody to understand the process and what's happening. It's also, this bill is a little unclear as to whether owners of multiple long-term rental properties are eligible to receive just a single $300 credit or multiple $300 credits for each property that they own. So we appreciate your time today. Mahalo for your consideration, and we stand by for any questions.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. Mr. Clerk, looking over the council meeting sign-up sheets, I don't see any other registered testifiers other than the two folks that we just said. Oh, I take that back. Heather Lusk on Bill 28.
Mr. Chair, the testifier is not logged on.
Okay. Chun James, I believe, also is registered to testify. Is that correct, Mr.?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Okay. Well, this has been good to see a lot of attention based on this property tax issue because it is a very, very huge issue and it will get worse and worse if nothing is done about it. So again, I think that we shouldn't be hung up on the price. If a $3 million home is offering an affordable long lease rent, then that's good. You know, it shouldn't matter what the price of the property should be. And also, I want to throw in there, I still think that it's important to put a property tax cap on kupuna who have lived here for a very long time. And I threw in 20 years because that will stabilize the core neighborhoods of our Oahu. And also, it will stabilize the housing for intergenerational Kama'aina households, and that is really important to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any further questions for the testifier? Seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Tupola, followed by Councilmember Kia'aina.
Chair, would it be best to make comment on all the ones for first reading or one at a time?
You could comment on all of the first reading items.
Okay, well, I'm not going to make a comment for every single one, but a few. Thank you. So I just wanted to open up the, I guess, reasoning behind Bill 22, which I proposed. This past year, many homeowners were unfairly burdened with a steep increase in their property taxes. Bill 22 is a property tax transparency bill, and actually, I do believe Ms. Iwasa, brought up the need for these public hearings and more education, which this goes right at the root of that solution. We need to be transparent with the residents when increased collections happen, and we should be allowing for a forum for them to share their voice and concerns on a subject that affects every single homeowner. Truth in taxation is a philosophy that property taxes should remain revenue neutral. This concept is a philosophy that helps hold government accountable by adjusting tax rates to keep revenues the same from year to year. This concept is currently actually used in Tennessee, Kansas, Utah, and Texas. I did meet with the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services, who oppose this and regularly adjusting tax rates, and is concerned that it will affect their bond rating. So I did not put that in this, but I did include one important part of truth in taxation, which is a public notice and a public hearing. And I wrote in if there were any increases in collections due to rising evaluations, that there would be a meeting. After I met with BFS, they said, maybe we should just have this annually so that we can be better at educating everyone and allowing them to speak out on property taxes. I was like, well, I guess that's better than my proposal. This year, property classifications increased by 13 to 20%. And it was a huge burden. I do believe that people deserve transparency. They deserve to have a forum where they can speak on this issue and not multiple proposals. And I do believe it should happen in the communities that they're from and that BFS should head it up. So that is what Bill 22 is about. And I thank my colleagues for any support. And if this gets, collected into the permitted interaction group, then that's great too. Wherever it goes, I just think that it's a very simple first step as we talk about the need to hear all voices. I wanted to just briefly say that I have reservations about Bill 28 and the burden that it will put on small businesses, but I look forward to further discussion in committee. And lastly, I need to vote no on Bill 30. It did come up in my neighborhood board last night, and there are many, many homesteaders concerned about this. Not necessarily the credit union portion, but the portion below that moves the minimum payment from $300 to $600 would affect every single homesteader in my district. And I have homesteads throughout Kapolei, throughout Nanakuli, and throughout Waianae. So this happened previously, and people came out in an outrage because a $300 increase for many of these individuals who are kupuna on a fixed income would be devastating. So because it's still moving, I look forward to amendments, but I do know that my community is tracking this and they're very angry about this one. But I do think that it could get better, and I hope that it will. But until then, I can't support it at this time. But I thank all of the introducers of all of the tax reform bills and look forward to the permitted interaction group coming forward with something that we can all understand. And my community asked me last night, what are all these bills and how do I know? I was like, wait, there's a permitted interaction group. We're going to try to make this easier for you. So I'm trying to keep everyone updated with what we're doing, and I thank the Budget Committee for their work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Just to clarify, it's a no on Bill 30, 3-0? Okay, thank you so much. Councilmember Kiaina, followed by Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Since we've been talking about real property taxes, we have focused a lot of our discussion on tax relief thus far for kupuna and homeowners that live in their home. The introduced measure that I have for first reading, Bill 27, 2023, encourages a conversation about whether relief for property owners that rent their properties out long-term should be considered differently from residential A. And I understand that there are other similar measures that have been introduced, so I look forward to continuing this important conversation. Bill 27 establishes a long-term lease real property tax classification for property owners that rent their properties for residential use for at least 1 year and excludes their properties from being classified as residential A. It also modifies residential A tiers from 2 to 3 tiers as follows. Tier 1 would be up to $1.3 million. Tier 2 would be from $1.3 to $2 million, and Tier 3 will be $2 million and above. Look forward to a robust discussion. With regard to Bill 30 as it relates to the Hawaiian Homelands program, I also have reservations. It not only impacts my community, I know for my own personal family, the majority of my family actually live on Hawaiian homelands. And so when you're dealing on a measure like this, I really think it's critically important, given the whole reason for the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act and the historical displacement of Native Hawaiian communities from their homeland. I think that we need to be measured in the manner of how we deal with this. I do know that Councilmember Say had introduced a multitude of bills relating to reviewing the exemptions on that book on the books, and I look forward to that, including some of the historic preservation properties whose homes are in the millions of dollars, and they only pay a minimum rate. Many of those homeowners, sometimes they don't even live here. They live elsewhere, and they're renting their homes for thousands of dollars every month while they pay the minimum tax rate. So I'm looking forward to the permitted action group on the array. So thank you, Chair, as well as the Budget Chair, for looking at this. And I'm looking actually for a dialogue on all of the exemptions, but I would have grave concerns over moving forward a measure relating to the Hawaiian Homelands program.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. My comments are in relation to Bill 30, and I want to thank both Councilmember Tupola and our Vice Chair Kia Aina for bringing up the concerns. As mentioned, we will be taking up a number of measures regarding exemptions, including measures recommended by the Oahu Real Property Tax Advisory Commission, Advisory Commission, I'm not sure what it's called, but to repeal exemptions. So this bill is pretty much the opposite of such, and to hopefully help us have a robust discussion on the possibilities for exemptions when we do go into the PIG. And so I do appreciate members for that consideration and to allow us for that depth of discussion when we get to the PIG. Thank you. Or if the PIG passes, excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any further discussion on first reading measures? Seeing none. Since there was an objection on Bill 30 on page 22, we can vote en masse on everything from page 18 to page 22, excluding Bill 30. Yeah. And we'll do a roll call vote on Bill 30. So one more time, is there any further discussion on the balance of first reading items? Seeing none, are there any objections or reservations to the bills on page 18 through 22, excluding Bill 30?
Bill 28, reservations.
Bill 28, reservations noted by Councilmember Tupola. Any other reservations, members? Okay. See none. First reading items on page 18 to 23 of the agenda, except for Bill 30, have passed first reading. Now, turning to Bill 30. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say?
Aye.
Councilmember Talba?
Aye.
Councilmember Tupola?
No.
Councilmember Wire?
Reservations.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 8 ayes, 1 no. Oh.
Actually, Councilmember Kia Aina?
Chair, I'm so sorry. No.
A no vote for Council.
No,
Please mark a no vote for Councilmember Kia Aina on Bill 30.
Okay.
And my vote is an aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 7 ayes and 2 noes.
Thank you very much. Members, Bill 30 has passed first reading. Now turning to page 24 from the Committee on Budget. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that Committee Report 81 and Resolution 23-26 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Did you do an explanation?
No, I'm sorry. This resolution accepts a gift of $2,200 to the city from the Association of Local Government Auditors to offset registration and travel expenses for one employee of the Office of the City Auditor to attend the 2023 annual conference in Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, is there anybody registered to testify on this matter?
Mr. Chair, we have no registered testifiers.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Noting no discussion, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 81 and Resolution 23-26 has been adopted. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that Committee Report 82 and Resolution 23-36 CD1 as amended be adopted. And this resolution accepts a gift of travel and related expenses valued at $4,500 to the city from the Association of Government Accountants for staff members of the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services and the Office of the City Auditor to attend the association's leadership training event in Baltimore, Maryland.
Second.
Thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered or unregistered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have neither.
Thank you so much. Members, I do recognize that we do have Director Andy Kawano from Budget and Fiscal Services who's available if members have any questions. We are in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 82 and Resolution 23-36 CD1 has been adopted. Moving to the top of page 25, Councilmember Cordero.
I move that Committee Report 83 and Resolution 23-37 be adopted. This resolution accepts a gift of registration and travel expenses valued at up to $2,530 to the city from the Government Finance Officers Association for one employee of the Office of the City Auditor to attend the association's 2023 annual conference in Portland, Oregon.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you for the explanation. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered or unregistered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Noting no discussion, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 83 and Resolution 23-37 has been adopted. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that Committee Report 84 and Resolution 23-40 CD1 as amended be adopted. And this resolution establishes a permitted interaction group to consider certain matters relating to real property taxation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Cordero has explained the measure. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered or unregistered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Noting none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 84 and Resolution 23-40 CD1 has been adopted. Members, turning to the top of page 26 from the Committee on Executive Matters and Legal Affairs, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I move that Committee Report 89 and Resolution 23-52 be adopted. This proposes to retain the legal services of a Hosoda Law Group as special counsel to represent Defendant Roy K. Giamambia Jr. in a matter entitled United States v. Dana Yuklang Leong et al., criminal number CR21-00142 LEK USDC.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, for the explanation. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
I believe we have Chun James who's registered to testify.
I'm sorry, Ms. Chun James.
Yes, aloha. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to have a brief comment that we have consistently testified through the years that we're all human and we all make mistakes. Employers should rightly provide legal services for errors and omissions done by employees in the course of work. However, if illegal or corrupt actions are performed knowingly by an employee that contradicts the Honolulu City Charter or the state or the U.S. Constitution, then the taxpayers of Honolulu should not be forced to pay for such legal fees. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, do we have anybody else who's registered or unregistered to testify on this matter?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Say.
Mr. Chair, may I be recused for the CR 89 at this point in time?
Yes.
From my voting. Thank you.
Any further discussion, members? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations and the recusal of Councilmember Say, CR 89 and Resolution 23-52 has been adopted. Councilmember Dos Santos Town.
Chair, I move that Committee Report 88 and Resolution 23-53 be adopted. This proposes to retain the legal services of McCorriston, Miller, Mukai, and McKinnon LLP as special counsel to represent defendant Max John Sword in a matter entitled United States vs. Dodana. Yuklan Leong et al., criminal number CR 21-00142 LEK USDC.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, for the explanation. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered or unregistered testifiers on this measure?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you very much. Members, I do want to note that we do have Corporation Counsel available if any of the members have any questions. Members, we're in discussion. Noting no discussion, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 88 and Resolution 23-53 has been adopted. Now to the top of page 27 from the Committee on Transportation, Councilmember Dos Santos Town.
Chair, I move that CR 93 and Resolution 23-38 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Tam for the explanation.
This approves the Department of Transportation Services Agency Rail Safety Plan for rail operations required by 49 CFR Part 673 and 49 CFR Part 674 and the Hawaii State Department of Transportation Program Standards and Procedures.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any remote or in-person testifiers?
Mr. Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. This question is for Director Morton.
Director Morton.
Hi, Director Morton.
Aloha.
Thank you for presenting to the Committee on Transportation and also sharing that this document is a workable, or I forgot the word that Councilmember Tupola mentioned, living document, or whichever it is just called. And I was just wondering, how will we be able to see and know what actual changes or amendments have been made to the documents in light of certain possible edits or amendments or things needed for clarification that has been brought up in the Committee on Transportation? How will that look like transmitted to the Council?
Well, this is a modification and amendment of an earlier plan that was passed by the Council. We've come with this one, which amends primarily language that's required by the CFR in this one, including the name of the actual safety plan. It's a very specific name in the Federal Register. We are required to do an annual update of this plan, and we'll be back annually to do updates. That's my understanding. This plan basically sets up a mechanism where we can promote a safety culture within the rail operation. It includes requirements that we have safety committees, including our unionized partners in both in the rail side. And basically, it is a document that is, some of the questions that came up earlier were in the description of the system, the hours of operation. But really, the essence of the document is to promote a safety culture within our rail operations. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, Council Member, but that would be my answer. Is that it is a living document in as much as we have ongoing safety meetings within our workforce, both at DTS, but also with our partner Hitachi.
Okay, thank you. I guess my question was like, how will we know exactly what was amended in the safety plan? Not that it has to come to the Council for approval or anything, but if a substantial amount of amendments or edits have been made to the plan itself, will that be transmitted to the Council as an as a communications?
Yes, would be the answer.
Okay. Next question is relating to, of course, we know that the safety plan is required and to be transmitted and after approval. And I know that this doesn't, I guess, explicitly say how the public outreach and also explanation of safety to the public would be, but how will we be able to translate this to the public?
Well, there are several ways. We are required to do a monthly reporting to federal government on incidents that do occur. We do that for both bus, and we will be doing that also for rail on a monthly basis. So we are setting up a reporting structure where as we begin to operate rail, we are required to report defined incidents on a monthly basis into a federal database. That's public information. I mean, it is information that when we release that, it is available for everybody. I don't know if we have a mechanism, but I'm happy to share whatever information that we do generate in a method that meets the council as well. It is a little bit of a technical issue, but it does go into a public database that is accessible by the public at any time, and it's transmitted monthly.
Okay, thank you. And the reason why I asked that is because you'll have at least close to half of the council who will have the initial route or initial system running through their districts or have some of the stations running. And so not just us approving of the safety plan, but allowing us to know what the plan is so that we can be a conduit to our community so that we could share that with everyone, with our community as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further discussion? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Just to follow up with a question from Councilmember Cordero. In regards to these updates, you just said that you guys are going to come annually and that you'll list it as a communication, but some of our edits were grammatical, formatting. I mean, they weren't huge edits. So my question, just to get this clear, is will all of that come annually in the form of a council communication, or as we give you those edits? I mean, some of them were just like incomplete sentence, like need to tab, need to bold, need to put. Are those ones able to do right away?
It is a resolution that we would like to have it passed today if possible, and that would be an as is once it's passed. I'm certainly happy to clean up the grammar if we have grammatical errors in it.
Well, that's what we were saying, though, is that we feel like they're minor modifications. They're not changing any of the content or substance of it. So that's why I was asking, is this something that we can give you feedback on, or is it just going to be an annual thing where we have to kind of wait and you do it in bulk because as we pass it, it has to remain as is per the law?
You can certainly give us feedback on it, and I'll make sure that our staff incorporates it at the appropriate time so that we'll take your input at any time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 93 and Resolution 23-38 has been adopted. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I move that Committee Report 94 and Resolution 23-42 be adopted. This requests the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation and the City Administration to prepare a study evaluating parking and other transportation options for the Waiava or Pearl Highlands Rail Station.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, for the explanation. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have Chun James logged on.
Thank you very much. Aloha, Chun James. Please proceed.
Aloha. This will be my final one. Again, my thoughts here is that this rail project has been the biggest project in the history of Hawaii, and it's been fraught with a lot of problems, fiasco, and on and on. And so again, this is an example of a very disconcerting and costly issue here. The parking space was put in there, 1,600 spaces, I believe. Then it was taken out, and now there's going to be a study, and it just keeps on and on and on. Oh, so what are we going to have? What are we going to have? Hire 500,000 a year consultant to do it, and then in turn they hire another consultant below them for another 500,000. So really, we need to consider the sunken cost of this project. Thank you, and have a good day, everybody.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, do we have any unregistered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Wire, I do want to note that we do have Director Morton as well as Lori Kaikina's designee present for questions.
Yeah, I would actually ask if either of them have any updates they could come up or any thoughts, but otherwise I see Director Morton coming up, so I'll let him say a bit and then maybe for discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair.
For the record again, Roger Morton, Director of Transportation Services. We have initiated an effort to actually have a study on this. I think we started, it was a study that started with DLM, but we've pretty much taken over the study, and we're going to try to do this in a good faith effort. We recognize the issues that are there with the removal of the garage. We have looked at this from several fronts. One of them is a temporary crossing that HART has worked out with State DOT. Our staff has been proposing a pedestrian bridge that would better connect up the Pearl Highlands Station, and we are going to do a study to look for alternatives for the parking issue, and don't have any new updates on that other than our commitment to as the resolution was, to look into whether there are alternatives that make sense for Pearl City and for Central Oahu and beyond.
Appreciate that, Director. So do we think, given that the resolution is requesting, I'd say all the options that are on the table in terms of transportation needs, right? So I think that would include the park and ride, the bus routes and additional services, the pedestrian bridge. Do we think December is a reasonable timeline to have more insight on the options, at least in the direction that we're going?
I don't want to overpromise. December in the scope of the way we do things is just around the corner. But I would be happy to give regular updates to the council on where we are, on this study at this point.
Okay, appreciate that, Director. Thank you. No further questions on my part. Just wanted to note that ultimately this resolution is about, the city fulfilling its commitments. Mm-hmm. I understand testifier Ms. James's concerns about, just the totality of what's gone into funding the project, and then looking at, the specifics that are going on. I think it's important that every community have those commitments fulfilled, right? And so when we're looking at the Mililani Waipi'o Milimanu Neighborhood Board a year ago passed the reso, just straight up asking, right? Do the park and ride, go find the funding. All these other things that they want to see. It's come up at Waipahu Neighborhood Board. I think that as we move forward, we want to at least have all the options on the table so we know what we can, potentially see, and then go get input from the community and allow them to kind of see what's going to happen. Because we do want to make sure that every community on Oahu is able to make best use of the public transportation services that we have, right? Particularly our youth, our kupuna, and our working families that need it to plan their lives. So look forward to hearing more. And like I said earlier, I do appreciate leadership at DTS, the leadership at HART. I think Director Kahikina has approached it great in terms of wanting to be fiscally prudent and get it back on track while ensuring that we are fulfilling and ensuring that we have equity, right? And that we're meeting the needs of all of our communities. And so do look forward to hearing more about the progress on these particular issues. in particular the park and ride, the pedestrian bridge, and then what the bus routes are going to look like from Central Oahu and the immediate area.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Director. And I may have missed a timeline. I would like to also hear, you mentioned you don't want to overpromise anything, and so was there a timeline? I think I have to concur with my colleague here that this is again in my district and I have concerns. I've asked in the past from other directors for measurables. I know that this is a resolution just to prepare a study, but what I think what I don't want to see, or what I'm hoping won't happen, is we just waste time and resources. So could you, maybe if I missed it in the previous discussion, could you explain to me what the goals are if this resolution passes? What's the study going to show? I've been vocal about, when I pass by there and I try to envision what could we do with this project, because whatever it was intended to do is not happening. And I'm having a hard time visualizing what could be done. So if you could, without overpromising, kind of give us ideas, benchmarks, what's our timeline, what are we looking at? I think in the committee hearings we heard maybe even housing, and I don't even know how we're going to get people across without getting hurt right now. And we have to look at also, I have concerns, really big concerns about the traffic in that area. Without even having the project done, the traffic on that part of Camp Highway going up to Acacia Road is really, it's really bad right now, and it's going to impact the community more than it already is. And so if you could kind of just share, maybe to please my questions, but also to help the community members in my district.
Yeah, you know, we've talked about impossible improvements we could do to control speeding, and I'm concerned about the same things when I look at the site. That it looks like I mean, we have a temporary one there. We have had discussions with our partners at State DOT as well over that. It's their highway. They're concerned about it as much as we are too. We're all on the same wavelength. We're all on the same canoe on that. We can talk about those things pretty quickly, about what type of safety improvements that we could look at that. We could talk about our bus routes pretty quickly. There have been discussions about whether we could attract a 3C type project, public 3P type project, where we had a developer do some things. We're looking at that as options. We're looking at alternative locations for park and rides as options. There's no obvious solution. They're all, what can we do with the station the way it is now? And I've driven by it many times too, and I've envisioned it the way I thought it was. I wish it was down by a little further along where we had better access to it. It is what it is, and we're committed to looking at that. We're committed to working with the communities. We're going to be out in all of the impacted areas at neighborhood boards. We're committed to having that discussion. We want to take a little bit of time we have some immediate things that we could talk about, like, as I say, safety improvements, bus lines. As we get further in, then we would be in a position to look, where are we exactly with alternative parking locations, or how can we accommodate different ways of doing those so that we can make use of this great resource that we're getting ready to open.
Thank you. And so I guess maybe I could just follow up. I'm looking forward to also to what you guys are going to hopefully brainstorm and present. I'm hoping that we're not going to just end up having this vacant structure there. Is that something that you and your department will not rest until we figure out what will happen to it? Or is it going to be a structure that in the end we look at it and say, well, it's unfortunate that we built it on solid ground and it's just sitting here? Is that something that I'm trying to, again, get an idea of where we're heading, because there were so many ideas thrown out. And so will you guys not rest until we figure out what to do, or is that an option where in the end it's just going to be an abandoned structure?
we're committed to making the structure work. There's lots of constraints. There's only so much money that goes around, and the priorities right now are to get our system into Central Honolulu to Civic Center, and believe me, we have only recently taken ownership of this issue, and I'm not even sure we've fully taken ownership of it at DTS. And but we're working with our heart partners, and we're committed to working with the community.
Thank you. And I know it was a hard decision that Director Kahikina had to make because of the funding. So I understand, and I actually appreciate that when tough decisions had to be made, they were made. So I look forward to continue working with you. There is a lot that has to take place, again, addressing with the state, the Kamehameha Highway, and then the traffic that's going to be caused, and also pedestrian crossing. There's a lot going on in the area. So thank you, Director Morgan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Members, any further discussion or questions for the Director? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 94 and Resolution 23-42 has been adopted. Now to the top of page 28, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
1 second. Top of page 28. I move that CR 95 and Resolution 23-44 be adopted. This approves an amendment to the City and County of Honolulu's list of Federal Transit Administration and Federal Highway Administration candidate projects in the federal fiscal years 2022 to 2025 Transportation Improvement Program.
Second.
Thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded and been explained by Councilmember Dos Santos Tam. Mr. Clerk, do we have any registered in-person or remote speakers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you very much. Members, we're in discussion, noting the presence of Roger Martin, Director of Department of Transportation Services, who's available if any members have questions. Any discussion? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the members of the Oahu MPO Policy Board, especially those on the council that do have and do serve with me, including Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, Councilmember Okimoto, and also Councilmember Tolba, and and of course myself, who these discussions have been ongoing along with members of the city administration, state administration, and Federal Highways Administration and more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 95 and Resolution 23-44 has been adopted. Now to the bottom of page 28 from the Committee on Zoning. Councilmember Say.
Mr. Chair, I move that Committee Report number 97 and Resolution 23-35, Committee Draft 1 as amended be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Say for the explanation.
This is granting a special management area use permit to allow the construction of a sand shed, retaining wall, septic tank with leach fields, and water line and fire hydrant improvements at TMK 9-1-026:056 in Honolulu.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any in-person or remote registered testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have one video conference testifier, Isaiah Sato of RM Towel Corporation, standing by.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sato, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair Waters and members of the City Council. Isaiah Sato from RM Towel Corporation. We're the agent regarding this Resolution 23-35 CD1 regarding the SMA for the Hawaiian Cement Sand Shed. I'm here if you guys have any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions for Isaiah Sato? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Sato. I know that I had a few questions during the committee hearing, and I know there was, I think, maybe one that you may have had to follow up with. I wasn't 100% sure if it was like the access that was near the buffer and to the septic tank itself. I apologize if I don't have the exact locations and map in my mind, but it doesn't have to be in the hearing right now, but I think if we could look back and see what needs to be followed up and just shared back with us, just a follow up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, members, I do want to point out that we do have Director of DPP, Don Takeuchi Apuna, present if any other members have any questions. Members, we're still in discussion. Seeing no discussion, are there any objections or reservations? Noting, roll call? Okay, my apologies. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina?
Aye.
Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Aye. Councilmember Tauba? Aye. Councilmember Tupola?
Aye.
Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 9 ayes.
Thank you. CR 97 and Resolution 23-35, CD1, has been adopted. Moving to the top of page 29. Councilmember
Thank you,
Wire.
Chair. I move that CR 101 and Resolution 23-43 accepting a gift of travel and related expenses to the city from the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators valued at $2,459.65 for an assistant program administrator of the Department of Customer Services to attend AAMVA's 2023 Region 4 Conference in Phoenix, Arizona from May 1st to 5th, 2023 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as well as explained. Mr. Clerk, do we have any people who would like to testify on this matter?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you very much. Members, we're in discussion. Noting no discussion, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 101 and Resolution 23-43 has been adopted. Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Committee Report 100 and Resolution 23-41 urging partners in care to consider the use of a new tool for the Oahu Continuum of Care Program's coordinated entry system be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded and explained by Councilmember Wire. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have no testifiers. Oh, wait.
I'm sorry.
One unregistered testifier by video conference.
Okay, please proceed. That's Angela Young.
Yes.
Hello. Someone disabled my video. Okay. So I'm testifying in strong support. This is for Resolution 23-41. So the tool, the ASPADAT, is to be administered to help the homeless people get the right kind of support by identifying potential providers. And a lot of these questions are relevant to the DHS General Assistance and Food Stamps application process. So the city handles the emergency health, but the state does just general health knowledge. So the state's DHS, who provides the welfare assistance for homeless people, and DOH will know about maybe how to create a better tool or how to find a better tool to help the homeless people get appropriate support. If there is a task force to conduct a feasibility study to find the right tool, that would be helpful also, like a team of mental health doctors, psychologists, counselors, trauma-informed care nurses, case management coordinators.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, any other testifiers?
Mr. Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. Members, we're in discussion. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, in support, and thank you, Angela, for testifying as well. I do not think we need an advisory committee. Partners in Care is actually already moving towards a different tool, but I just wanted to outline and thank the Chair of Housing for moving this forward. I know it's kind of in the weeds. Not everyone does all of the homeless outreach, but I think that it's super important for us to understand that if we are not making a dent in homelessness, that there could be things in the system or in the process that need to be changed. The VI SPDAT and CES produce inconsistent results detrimental to its purpose. Two major issues regarding prioritization and measurement are pervasive in its operation. The prioritization keeps the system in a state of triage instead of moving to prevention. If people who are newly homeless must wait until they are vulnerable enough to get priority on the list to receive housing, they may be at a point they require more acute care. However, basing placements on vulnerability does not consider the client's perspectives or the specific needs and wants. In regards to the measurement issues, the VI SPDAT is unreliable, invalid, and presents measurement invariance. The VI SPDAT is unreliable because the same person can be given the same assessment multiple times within a similar time frame and receive wildly different scores. It is invalid because some people who are medically vulnerable can score extremely low. There is invariance because certain racial groups can score differently, which are issues recognized at the federal level. Partners in Care report examined racial equity in service provision, found that racial disparities existed in types of services provided and that the disparities could be explained by the VI SPDAT scores. The VI SPDAT is not inaccurate, and just for clarity, it's the vulnerability index system that the current homeless providers use, is not an accurate tool and that properly prioritizes individuals or evaluates their situations. The VI SPDAT produces inconsistent results, and a different coordinated entry system must be implemented for all of the homeless providers utilizing city funds. It's important for us to understand this because this is the score that basically gets people into housing. I've helped various people do this. It takes only certain people who have access into it. It takes various hours, and sometimes we'll refer someone who's homeless in Waianae to go move to Aiea, where housing is now available for them. I think that the tool that we choose needs to be more community focused and also provide support within the support system that the homeless individual has. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 100 and Resolution 23-41 has been adopted. Before I move on to page 30, Councilmember Kia Aina.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, I wanted to introduce a federal official in the audience who will be meeting with the Mayor and the Office of Economic Revitalization this afternoon. Sheba Person Whitley. Sheba, if you could stand, is the Regional Director for the U.S. Economic Development Administration out of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Her kuleana includes all of the Western states, Hawaii, the U.S. Pacific Territories, as well as the freely associated states of Micronesia. And with her is Keoki Noji, who is the Economic Development Representative based in Hawaii. I highly recommend for any of you who have nonprofit organizations or governmental institutions who are interested in economic development grant opportunities. The Economic Development Administration is one of the most active federal agencies in this region. So I just wanted to acknowledge her because this is her first time in her official capacity to be visiting Hawaii, and then she'll be heading out to the Pacific Territories tomorrow. Thank you.
Aloha, welcome, and thank you for spending some time with us. Thank you, members. Next to the Committee on Public Safety, Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Committee Report 102 and Resolution 23-31 be adopted.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Okimoto for the explanation.
Accepting a gift of rental equipment and services valued at $11,820 to the city from Hawaii Stage and Lighting Rentals, Inc. for the 2023 Police Week Memorial Service.
Thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded. And explain, Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. I do note that we have Major J. Pedro. Aloha. Here, if you have any questions, members. We're in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations?
Sorry, Chair, are we on Resolution 2331?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I filed a disclosure of interest, Council Communications 102. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any objections or reservations, members? Noting no objections or reservations, CR 102 and Resolution 23-31 has been adopted. Thank you. Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Committee Report 103 and Resolution 23-39 CD1 as amended be adopted.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Okimoto for the explanation.
Initiating amendments to the revised Charter of the City and County of Honolulu 1973, amended 2017 edition, as amended, pursuant to the Mayor's Executive Reorganization Authority relating to the Citizens Advisory Commission on Civil Defense.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. Members are in discussion. Noting no discussion, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tam by video conference?
Aye.
Councilmember Kia Aina? Councilmember Okimoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Say? Aye. Councilmember Talba?
Aye.
Councilmember Tupola?
Aye.
Councilmember Wire?
Aye.
Chair Waters?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 8 ayes, 1 member is absent.
Thank you. CR 103 and Resolution 23-39, CD1 has been adopted. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that the balance of committee reports be adopted.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Cordero for the explanation.
So we have EMLA CR 87, which is a request for authorization to settle a claim against the city and county of Honolulu, claim number 22-01919, Mardel Fernandez. We have EMLA CR 90, request for authorization to settle a case against the city and county of Honolulu, entitled Michael A. Glenn versus Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu et al., civil number 1CC 181000571, Circuit Court. EMLA CR 91, request for authorization to settle a case against the city and county of Honolulu, entitled Gerard K. Taguchi et al. Versus City and County of Honolulu et al., civil number 1CCV 181001252, Circuit Court, for adoption.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any people wishing to testify?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. Members are in discussion. Noting no discussion, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, the balance of committee reports have been adopted. There being no unfinished business, moving to page 32, new business. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that Resolution 23-54 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Cordero for the explanation.
This accepts a gift of travel and related expenses to the city from the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, valued at the estimated value of $5,400 for 2 Department of Information Technology employees to attend AAMVA's annual commercial driver license coordinated / information technology meeting in Houston, Texas, May 16 to 18, 2023.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have none.
Thank you so much. We're in discussion. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. Is there someone from the city administration here?
I believe we have someone from the Deputy Director of Department of Information Technology.
Hi, Deputy Director Stephen Courtney. I was just wondering, relating to the motor vehicle administrators, is this specific to the technology itself, or will you be needing to relay this information to someone from the Department of Customer Services?
It is, again, this is Stephen Courtney. It is related to I guess, making sure you have the proper requirements in regards to producing the code. So, in particular for commercial driver's license. And this is it's an annual meeting. And as I recall, the last time we've attended was back in 2019.
Okay. And will this information be, is there any information from this, I guess, conference or meeting needed to be relayed to anyone from Department of Customer Services?
Yes. Yes, it will be.
Okay. Would it be valuable if it was like maybe 1 from DIT and 1 from CSD versus 2 from DIT?
Oh.
Hi, I'm Christy Cam from Department of Information Technology. There's actually 3 attendees, 2 from DIT, 1 from CSD, and another one from HDOT. So everybody will be there. It's a collaboration of commercial driver license business users as well as information technology staff.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that explanation, Ms. Cam. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further questions for DIT? Seeing none, thank you very much. Members, we are still in discussion. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Resolution 23-54 has been adopted. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that Resolution 23-55 be adopted. It accepts a gift of animal training, including consultation, travel, and lodging, valued at $9,100 to the city from the Honolulu Zoological Society for the Honolulu Zoo staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded and explained by Councilmember Cordero. Mr. Clerk, do we have any testifiers?
Mr. Chair, I have one testifier logged in.
Okay, please proceed.
My phone is going to die, so I'm just going to testify in strong support on behalf of ROAR, Rescue of Animal Rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, any other testifiers, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Chair, there are no other testifiers.
Thank you so much. I do note the presence of Jerry Propilio, Director of Department of Enterprise Services. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, we're in discussion, members. Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Resolution 23-55 has been adopted. Thank you for staying with us all day, Director. Councilmember Cordero.
I move that that Resolution 23-56 be adopted, and this accepts a gift, and I'm going to need Director Papillo to help me with this, a gift for a farrier and veterinarian that specializes in giraffes and hooved animals to train Honolulu Zoo staff in hoof care and anesthesia valued at $13,740 to the city from the Honolulu Zoological Society.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as well as explained. Mr. Clerk, do we have testifiers?
Mr. Chair, we have no testifiers.
Thank you so much. Council, we're in discussion. Councilmember Cordero, did you have a question for Director? I believe, what is a farrier? Was the question.
Horseshoes.
Thank you, Chair Waters and council members. Yeah, farriers basically hoof care for animals. A lot of times, I think someone in the background mentioned about horses and horseshoes, but also giraffes have a similar structure, and in this case, very large size animals. So it's important when you, they're not as maybe easy and as approachable as the horses. So in this case, there'll be some sedation, and that's not always a simple task with long necks and large animals. And so bringing these experts in to help us, one, to train up our staff, and two, to go through a procedure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Director. I was wondering how often is this done on an annual basis, or is this done on an annual basis?
Yeah, not necessarily bringing in somebody on an annual basis, but as far as it's an ongoing basis, right? You're always looking at making sure that the animals are in good health and care, and foot care is very important. Thank you.
Definitely. And I have to say, on a personal note, giraffes are my favorite animal.
All right.
Thank you very much. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, any objections or reservations? Noting no objections or reservations, Resolution 23-56 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to the top of page 34, there are no items for the Committee on the Whole or executive session. Are there any announcements, members? Seeing none, Councilmember Cordero for the motion to adjourn.
I move that the meeting stand adjourned until Wednesday, May 17, 2023 at 10 a.m.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any objections? Noting no objections, the council stands adjourned until Wednesday, May 17th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Thank you, members.